Hello artists, today we are going to be working on a collage project. From your sketchbook today, you will simply need one sheet of paper. However, by the time this project is done, we will have used 2 sheets of paper. I expect this project to take us 2 days, so I'm going to be splitting it up into 2 parts. In order to make your collage, you need a background paper that you're going to glue all of your pieces to, and then of course you need the pieces that you're going to glue down. So today we are going to be creating the colorful paper which will become the pieces that we cut out tomorrow. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do a time lapse of me coloring my paper so that you can see what this will look like when it's all done. Okay, so now that I have colored in my piece of paper, I just want to talk about a few things. First of all, I chose to use crayons when I did mine. You have the freedom to choose crayons, markers, colored pencils, or any type of coloring tool that you might have available. You'll also notice that I used 6 different colors. I want you to make sure you at least use 5 different colors because the how interesting your collage will look when it's totally done really has a lot to do with what variety of colors are you using and also what variety of shapes you're going to use. And we'll talk about those in just a moment. Now the last thing I want to say about coloring, 2 things. Number one, when you look at mine, I think you'll see that there aren't a whole lot of those little white parts of the paper poking through. When I did my coloring, I really tried my best to make sure that I took my time and really filled the space in. I know on those time-lapse videos it looks like I'm going super fast, but I probably spent 10 or 15 minutes coloring this in. When I color, I don't move my hand back and forth really fast. Instead, it's my wrist and my fingers that do most of the work. And that way I'm making sure I'm getting a really nice even coverage, no scribble scrabbles on my project. Okay, if you look at yours and you can see that white paper showing through, which I have a few spots where it is, then you can just take your time and go back and fill those in. So as you can see, it's the best way to use your time is just to do nice little motions like that. That way you're getting nice even coverage. Now the other thing about coloring is you'll notice that I went edge to edge. So I went all the way to the edge of the paper. And if you want to keep your tabletop clean, do you see how I have that extra sheet of paper? Hopefully you noticed on the video me doing this, but I'll kind of show you again. If I put that piece of paper underneath, that way when I go all the way to the edge, my crayon doesn't end up on my tabletop. It ends up on that paper. So you may want to grab a second sheet of paper that you can put underneath your project for that. Okay? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to give you a little bit of time to color in the whole front side of your piece of paper. Good luck. At this point, students will begin coloring in their plain white sheet of paper. You can color this in any style that you want as long as you fill up all of the white of the page. There is no right or wrong way to color this in as long as you do your best and as long as you fill the paper. Remember, we are going to be using this paper to cut out our shapes tomorrow, so make it as interesting as you can. All right, artists, so we are on to step 2 of this project. Much like Henri Matisse and his collages, what we are going to do is use this colorful paper, and we are going to cut a variety of shapes out of it and then glue it onto a new piece of paper. So the tools you will need for today is this colorful piece of paper that you colored in yesterday. You'll also need a second blank sheet of paper that you can get from your sketchbooks. You'll also need a pair of scissors, a pencil, and a glue stick. And I'll give you time to get those tools in a moment. For now, you can watch me work on mine. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is this is that piece of paper I colored yesterday. On the back side of it, I'm going to draw a variety of shapes. Okay, so we want to do some geometric shapes, which are shapes that have names like triangles, squares, circles, rhombus, trapezoid, things like that, oval. Oops, let me make that oval a little bit better. And here's why I'm glad I'm doing this on the back side. If you start drawing something that doesn't quite go how you want it, it's easy to erase. But if we tried that on the front side, it would be very hard to erase because my crayon is there and I can't really erase on top of crayon. So I'm going to put in some geometric shapes. Now, I'm trying to do these medium size. Like, there's the palm of my hand. If I cut that shape out, it would fit nicely in the palm of my hand. What I don't want to do is go teeny tiny. If you're making your shapes like the size of your fingernail, those are going to be too small. So we want it bigger than our fingernail, smaller than our whole hand. So that's why I say shapes that could fit easily in the palm of your hand are just right. Let me put something in that's just a little bit bigger. It does not matter where you draw these. What does matter, though, is that each shape has its own space on the paper. Like, I would not want to draw a shape right across this triangle here. And you'll see why in a little bit. I need to be able to cut these out. So, 3 geometric shapes. Let me challenge myself and add one more. I'm going to do a nice trapezoid shape here. This one's a little bit bigger. But you can see if I cut that out, I could still pretty easily fit it into my hand. So it's a good size. All right, now those are called geometric shapes. Geometric shapes are the shapes that we usually think about when we're in math class and we're talking about naming the shapes. Circles, triangles, squares, ovals, right? Now, there's also such a thing as organic shapes. Organic shapes are shapes that do not have names, and a lot of times they are maybe a little more squiggly. They look like something that you might see if you were in nature. Like, for example, when I am swimming in a lake and I feel something slimy brush against my leg, it's usually because there's seaweed coming out of the lake. So that would be a good organic shape, okay? Leaves are really nice organic shapes. I'm just going to do a little squiggly leaf shape there. Now, it's okay if your organic shape doesn't really look like anything that you've seen anywhere. What does matter is that where it starts is where it ends. So here's what I mean by that. I have a little dot there. I'll do some squiggly lines. And I'm going to bring that shape back to where it came from. Okay? Again, notice how I never crossed my shape over one of the other shapes because, as you'll see in a little bit, I want to be able to cut these out. I did 1, 2, 3, 4 geometric shapes, 1, 2, 3 organic shapes. I've got room to fit in, I'd say, about 2 more shapes right there and right there. So maybe I'll do another organic and maybe another geometric. We'll do a nice rhombus shape there. Okay, so just to review, what I've done here is, this was that paper I colored yesterday. On the back side, I did a variety of shapes, some geometric shapes and some organic shapes. I'm going to give you a few minutes to draw those shapes on the back, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. We will pause the video right here so that students can turn their paper over and draw geometric and organic shapes on the back. Okay, now that we've had an opportunity to draw those shapes on the back of our colorful paper, the next thing we're going to do is cut them out. When you're using your scissors, you'll notice that there's the small circle, there's the big circle. The small circle is the one we put our thumb through. The big circle you can fit 2 or 3 fingers into. Now you'll notice that when I'm cutting, I keep my scissors right in front of me the whole time. I'll start with something easy like this rectangle here. And it's the paper that I move. And I do little chomps so that I can stay on that line. Now when I cut, I'm going to simply cut out my shapes and then I'll save those off to the side. Okay? It's okay for me to cut into the areas where I haven't drawn shapes, but what I want to do is make sure that I'm keeping these parts fully solid and not cut into, so that by the time I'm done, they're all cut out and I have a nice pile of shapes. So I'm going to work on that here for just a little bit. At this point, we will pause the video so that students can cut out their shapes. Take your time, do your best work. Okay, so at this point, I have cut out my geometric shapes, I've cut out my organic shapes, I'm ready to create a collage. And when I was creating my shapes, I didn't have any sort of a story in mind. I just drew shapes that I thought looked cool. And this is one of the things that I like about collaging, is now I get to arrange those shapes and I get to kind of play with it and see if something interesting or surprising happens. Before I do anything though, I'm going to put my name on the back side of this white piece of paper. This is that second white piece of paper that you need for this project. It should just be a blank white piece of paper, so you can get one of those and put your name on it. And then I'm just going to kind of get some of my pieces now out of the way and put my white paper there. Now I'm looking at the front side of it, names on the back. Okay, and now at this point I get to rearrange the shapes and set it up however I'd like. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, so I played around with my collage design. I decided that I did want to kind of show a picture or tell a story with mine. And you might remember I was talking about seaweed when I was cutting out this shape. And I was looking at some of the other shapes I had, and I thought, hey, it kind of looks like I have a boat. And so I did a little water scene here. So I've got my seaweed coming out of the water, I've got my boat, I've got some clouds and a sun up in the sky, and hey, it's okay that my sun is an oval shape, right? Actually, I think that makes it look kind of interesting. And then I just put this diamond underneath the boat. Maybe that can be like the boat's shadow underwater. Okay, now that I've set those pieces up, now it's time for me to get my glue stick. When I use my glue stick, I only want just a little bit sticking out, and I'm going to stick those pieces down. So of course, when we stick them down, we turn it over. This is the part where I really want you to take your time. We don't want to be too messy with our glue sticks, so I'm trying to get the glue just on the piece that I'm trying to stick down. One of my rules for glue is whatever piece is the smallest, that's what you glue. So what I mean by that is I can choose between putting glue on the background paper or in this case on the seaweed piece. Since the seaweed piece is smaller than the background paper, that's where I'm going to put the glue, because that way I don't end up with messy glue spots all over my background. Now, it's not enough to just put the glue on the back. You also need to take the time to press it down. Okay? And so, again, that's why I say don't rush through this part. Because if you really take your time, you're going to have these beautiful collages where everything is stuck down and in its place. But if you rush it, you're going to see messy glue spots everywhere and you'll have pieces peeling up. Okay, so I'm going to do this next part on time lapse, but I want you to know that I'm probably going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes gluing these down so that I can do a really good job with it. And now at this point, students may do all of the steps that they need to do in order to finish the project. Thank you for making art with me today.